Hello. The weather can't make up its mind. It was seeming to the beginning, the inkling of spring, the Ides of March, and the harbinger, the reminder of the winter. So today's a little rainy and cold, and it gave me an opportunity to do the second Zen with a smile in a 1 day time period to date. What came to mind was two helpful words. One, as a course of action, course of reflection, and the other, the positive use, the application. And I like to play with words anyway. Words are fun. As well as being useful at times. So what came to mind was dismember, to take apart, and remember, and looking at them in the sense that can one help lead you to another. And before I go into that, I have to say that I got in the dis game. I just started trying to list as many words as I could that starts with dis, and to take a look at them. And I ended up deciding that maybe I could, if you indulge me, maybe I could read a few. Disable, disarrange, disembark, disinterested, disobedient, dispossess, dissimilar, disagree, disapprove, disentangle, disloyal, discomfort, and maybe that's enough of reading anyway. It's almost inexhaustible, the list of dis words. And it even led me to think about to dis, a verb, to dis, to dismiss, to dismiss or to disregard is the word. Dismiss, disregard. To dis, okay? And finally, in the spirit of faith, one that would normally, I didn't even realize at first that it was a dis word. And that's disease. Dis-ease. Not at ease. It serves as another reminder that anything that detracts you, distracts you from ease. Ease, I believe, is the natural state of our being. At ease, as the military would say. Yeah. The opposite of attention. So, the little epiphany I had was that disease, not being at ease, leads to disease. So, we're starting with this word I want to use is dismember, to methodically take apart. Dismember an argument, dismember a body, dismember a memory. How about dismember our egoic sensibilities? Remember, we constructed them through our senses, through our desire to find some order, to find some, hopefully to get some kind of control about the mayhem around us, which is life. So it just dawned on me that this is a good place to start. Dismember. To deconstruct. The illusionary and ever so harmful ego, our egoic sensibility, egoic identification, egoic sense of separation, egoic sense of division. And you have to dismantle, take something apart in a methodical way. If you have any hope at all of reinventing, of remembering what your natural condition truly is, what the universe truly is, what's the natural condition of all of us. I talked about before, redo, remake, remember, put the opposite of dismember, put something together again, something that is perhaps or surely more meaningful than what was deconstructed, what was dismembered, what was taken apart, what was dismantled. And in this process, the beauty of this process is, number one, it lets you get rid of obstacles that are in your way, that are no longer have a useful purpose in our spiritual journey. And we do this through spiritual inquiry. And this is my suggestion of how to begin this process of inquiry, to dismember everything that you thought you knew, everything about yourself, who you thought you were, so that you could remember, put together a new model, a new tool, with new concepts, with renewed understanding, to reinvigorate, to help get a more helpful and useful understanding of what you really are. So, tools on a spiritual journey. To through deep reflection, through understanding that what appears to be real seldom is or seldom has any reality. And I talked about quantum physics and the role that quantum physics plays in our re-examination, our re-understanding, our renewed takes on facts. And many facts are relegated to the realm of fiction. When we start to realize that tapping on my desk sure seems solid, but we know from atomic levels that it's more than 90, at least more than 99% empty space. So, even using the science that we accept, the science that we've validated, we can examine some of our concepts and one of the concepts worth re-examining, revaluing, revisiting is the sense of solidity. That's solid. This is real. When I look out the window and I see the trees and I see... Actually, is that trees or is that color? Am I seeing a lot of green? It's overcast day today, so it lends, overcast fog lends itself to the veil of reality. What we thought was real is veiled and it's less solid. Maybe it leaves room for some uncertainty. And uncertainty is a good hallmark of what we are attempting, what our efforts are directed towards, to establish that reality is more real than we had dared to imagine. So this remembering. And what are we remembering? What are we putting back together? Well, we're remembering the condition that we've always known. We've always sensed. That it's not a divisive world. It's not a separated world. Through surrender, we start dismembering our misunderstanding of who and what we are. Lifting the veil. Letting the sun burn through. Yeah. So these are the things we need to remember. Our natural condition. And these things are, the validity of them is pretty intense, pretty amazing, because when you have that aha moment, or whenever you say, I knew that, I know that, and I say, yes you do. You just got temporarily suffered from amnesia. You temporarily forgot. everything that you knew to be so. So, tools on the way to remembering. Dismember, take apart the old. Look for, once the old is out of the picture, once the old is put to rest, it leaves some room for discovery, more aptly, rediscovery. What's so? So if instead of throwing up your heads and saying, I don't know where to begin, I know there's a fallacy in my belief structure. I see some holes, some shortcomings. And the most obvious shortcoming is that it's standing between me and peace, me and equanimity, me and fearlessness. It's contributing to the fear instead of releasing me from burdens. We've talked about suffering. Suffering. People understand Buddhism in the sense, the simplistic sense that suffering is all that there is. Suffering is what life is about. We're just here to suffer. And I'm suggesting that any sense of suffering is caused by disconnect. Disconnecting from what you know inside to be real. This leads to suffering. It's not a condition of mankind. It's a self-imposed condition on ourselves. Maybe you're like a friend of mine who said he's struggling with inclusion, that he's embraced exclusion, and he's adamant, he's strongly supporting he's disillusioned, he's disappointed, but he's embraced hook, line, and sinker, exclusivity, separation. He's excluded people and places and things from his life that doesn't fit in his pattern of what's so. Well, self-inquiry, taking a look at things, will enlighten you, will show you, the light will be turned on about the limitations of his personal limitations. He's chosen to impose them on himself, which we do. We're given free will, but we choose to suffer from our own self-developed misinformation. So he asked me, when I listen to Zen with a Smile, you're so inclusive. You're accepting that everyone is from the same source, that everyone is enlightened. They're just a little confused. But there's a universality, a cohesiveness in what you're presenting. And he told me that even though it appeals to him, he's deeply vested in the maya of separation. He's the person that's very active in what he does, and he has at times controversial, not mainstream thoughts about what he is doing, how he's making his livelihood. And part of this is excluding people. It's either you buy my way or it's the highway. There's no room for compromise. And he doesn't take criticism like me. It doesn't take criticism well. He said he'll ignore it. Well, I'm not that radical in my abhorrence to criticism. I'm learning that criticism, if it's in a constructive, if it's made to suggest, to help instead of tearing down, if it's meant to destroy, I'm with him. Let's ignore that kind of criticism. But if it's meant to enhance, make you a better man, make what you're doing better, then it's worth inquiry, it's worth reflection. So all these things are more signposts. How to get from dismemberment to remembering is certainly anything but a easy task. Sometimes it's quite arduous. It's quite expending a lot of effort. But remember, when you get to a certain point of inquiry, when you're able to question, at least question your root values, that your egoic sense is who and what you are, that your ego, that your self-concept is what you are. When you've reached the stage that you're at least willing to question that, when you start to see that it's the source of disease that is putting you dis-ease, you're not at ease. When you start to see that, I've watched my friend for a long time, and I can see that, like all of us, he's his own worst enemy. What you put out there is what you get. If you put out exclusion, well, it comes back. I've said before, whatever you want, you give. I would go so far to say that this is really the secret of life. If you want respect, you give respect. If you want friendship, you be a friend. If you want love, you unconditionally give out love. See, it's the condition, unconditionally. If you're expecting quid pro quo, I do something for you, you return that, well, you're sorely disappointed, and that leads to bitterness. I'm so bitter. I loved her so much, but she did me wrong. Who did who wrong? That's a better question. So, dis-ease. Not being in the constant state of ease. When you start to ease up, Give yourself a break. Give yourself a pat on the shoulder. You're starting to develop the most important, in my book, the most important requirement to awakening, and that's equanimity. To face all circumstances from ease. To be comfortable in chaos, to silence, the whole range, because from silence to chaos is part of the spectrum of what living in this world is. All those things are available. But what's important is that you learn to be not be affected by either extreme, and certainly not by the things in the middle. Yeah, you become observer, you become a witness. Equanimity will automatically lead to the development of a witness. So that you will witness yourself, you see yourself experience happiness, you see yourself experiencing sadness, you see yourself suffering, but those are superficial, surface things, because you're coming from a point of wholeness, a point of knowing that everything's okay, or everything's not okay, and appreciating that those kind of things are out of the realm of who and what you are. Acceptance. Accepting that we'll never be successful at changing the world. Admirable concept. But again, it's like spitting into the wind. Spit out, comes right back onto you. But what you can do, the work, the real work, is on yourself. You can do your small part to make this a better world by being a better human being, by being a better person, by living in a state of ease, a state of equanimity, so that all you come in contact with will at some level sense that. I've used the analogy before of tossing a pebble in the pond and watching the concentric circles move outward. And coming to an understanding that that action of throwing the stone in the pond has consequences. And I'm recognizing that visually the concentric circles end at where the water meets the shore. That's where it appears to end. But truly, it continues ad infinitum, forever. And not only this direction, but all directions. It's like a M&M, peanut M&M, encapsulated. It's circular, so it emanates from not just this way, emanates. And when you come to grips with this, when you remember this simple thing that you knew, you know, you've always known, is the state of who you are. That in that lies your opportunity, your responsibility to help in your small way to make the world a better place. Learn to find satisfaction in doing things that are within your control. And have faith that the consequences will be meaningful. I once heard someone say, a spiritual advisor say, clean your own back porch first. You can do that. Go out back and get rid of the clutter, neaten it up, scrub and wash and clean, organize. Whatever is your methodology for dealing with trying to find order in chaos, whatever tools are in your arsenal, go to it. But he continued saying that if each of us cleaned our back porch, we'd already accomplished a perfect world. So, I like to go back full circle. Dismember all that you mistakenly thought you were. And remember who you really are.